Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Asia. Thank you so much for watching. Today, we're going to discuss subculture. Now, I was gonna film a whole first impressions, get ready with me, but honestly, this thing, there is so much drama around this palette right now. It's crazy. So I just wanted to give you my honest, no bullshit, just what I personally think about this palette and what I feel you need to know about it. I'm gonna be very honest with you. My personal opinion is very conflicted. I'm gonna give you kind of just how I feel about it. Really, when it comes down to it, we're all adults. If you don't like the palette, friggin' return it, please. Like, there's no reason to go crazy. Just return the palette. I think that returning the palette is the best way to get the message across that we as consumers aren't too happy. Here's the deal. Is this a hard palette to work with? Yes. Yes, it is. Is it the hardest palette to work with? No. Is there tons of kickback in this palette? Yes. Do not swirl your brush. Please, I see people going in and don't do that. Don't do that. These are very softly pressed shadows. Literally, I mean, I don't know if this will pick up. Okay, don't mind where I totally like hit it with my brush today, like an idiot. But if you can see, like, fudge is probably the worst one for me. But if you can see, there are brush marks in it. That is literally me just tapping my brush. Tap, 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 tap. Softly pressed shadows, matte formula. If you are going to get this palette, some helpful tips. Some helpful tips. Don't swirl your brush. Just barely tap it. Try to build up colors by using as little product as you can. When you get the product, when you go to place it on your eye, touch the brush down where you're gonna want the most deposit of color. Because these are so pigmented and so soft, they don't blend out as well. And because they are a super matte formula, if there is any tackiness or dampness to your lid, oh boy, you're not blending that out. It's like, it's not chalky consistency, but think of chalk. If you have chalk and you add any type of moisture to it, it just sucks that up and it's like locked, right? That's what these will do. So if you're used to putting down an eyeshadow base, make sure that you are covering that with some kind of either shadow that is the color of your lid or your face powder, something to mattify your lid before you go to put on these. Because if you touch your brush, it's just gonna stick to that and you're not blending it out. Also, if you are like me and are aging or have hooded eyes, you will find that when you are blending, if you have any type of like wrinkles or anything like that, it can be harder to blend in those. There's a lot of back and forth with this palette, going back to a lighter shade, back to the darker shade, lighter, darker, to just blend that color and really buff it. And I find that when you are having to do that, it can kind of get muddy, so just be careful. Use small brushes so you're blending right where you want it versus over the whole entire lid. Colors, like, so All Star is an absolutely, for example, that's what I'm wearing today, is All Star in this outer part. This is an absolutely beautiful burgundy shade, absolutely beautiful. But when you blend it out, it can get kind of a different color. So it gets more purpley. Let me see if I can show you. So see how, I'm sorry, it's blurry. My camera probably won't focus, but you can kind of see how it's a lighter, more burgundy shade. And then see how where I kind of blended it out, you can see how it starts getting darker down here where it's blending in. So I feel like that's a good example of what you should expect on your eye. The colors, because they are so matte, they do kind of get a little bit darker and change color, which is not the coolest thing to work with. It's not. I mean, let's be honest, that kind of sucks. My biggest irritation with this palette is not that it's more difficult to work with, because you can absolutely, I did this eye look today, but instead of it taking me about 15 minutes, it took me about half an hour, because I had to keep going back and blending, and then redepositing color because I was losing that color that I wanted. I'm disappointed in this palette, not because it's harder to work with, because it totally is. I'm disappointed in this product because it was marketed as the sister palette to the Modern Renaissance. The Modern Renaissance is an amazing palette. There is a reason why we all love it. There's a freaking reason. The colors are beautiful. It's super easy to blend out and work with. The colors just stay vibrant. It's perfect. It's honestly, it is such a good palette. They marketed this as the sister palette to the Modern Renaissance, and that is my biggest irritation with this palette, is that advertising and marketing basically told us this is going to be the Modern Renaissance Part 2. Like, that's the impression we were all given. It is not. It's not. They completely changed the formula. It's completely different. Does that irritate me? Yes. Yes, it does. Sorry. Not sorry. That's the truth. If you are putting out something and advertising it one way and it's completely different, you can't be shocked and surprised that people are upset. Now, do I think it's something that needs to be at the level it is? No. Take it back. Like, return it and get your money back. The company is going to respond, I feel, better to people returning it than complaining about it, because people are still buying it. Will it sell out? Probably, but it's a permanent palette. It's not going anywhere. And if it does go anywhere, it's because people were that unhappy about it. I just, the level of anger I don't feel is warranted. But do I completely understand the irritation? Yes. And disappointment? Yes. So, recap, I know I'm kind of all over the place. It is a more difficult palette to work with. If you were expecting it to be like the Modern Renaissance, it's not. Are the colors beautiful? Yes. Is the quality great? Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with the quality whatsoever. You just need to know there are some tips and tricks to learn when working with this palette, and it takes some effort. Now, I use this palette, I've created 3 different eye looks, and I was gonna film a tutorial and do something like with what I did today, but honestly, I just don't even feel like it's worth it at this point because of how many people are upset about this palette, and it's all over the place. I don't think it's necessary to show how when you swirl the brush in, there's so much kickback. It's a softly pressed matte, highly pigmented formula. That's gonna happen. Modern Renaissance had a ton of kickback. Does this have more? Yes. So don't swirl your brush in it. So things like that, I'm like, there's no reason to get so upset over that. My biggest thing is that I was expecting it to be like the Modern Renaissance, and it's not. So I will say, if you have the Modern Renaissance palette, I used it in conjunction with this yesterday, and it was like I came up with a beautiful look. And also hold on. If you have the Anastasia Master Palette by Mario, so these are mostly shimmer shades, so I don't use this as much because for me, with hooded eyes and older aging eyes, I don't really use shimmers except for on the lid. My creases tend to be mostly matte, so that's another reason I was so excited about all these beautiful fall matte colors. But I will say, these two together, oh my gosh, that is, if you have this, that is the way to use this palette. So like yesterday I used Destiny, which is this really pretty mossy green, and I just popped that like all over the lid, all just one shade, not the whole entire lid. I mean, obviously not on the brow bone, but I just did it all over. And then I took Bronx, which is this really pretty mossy shimmer shade, and just popped that on the lid, and I had like a really pretty monochromatic eye that was super, super simple. So that's mostly how I think I'm going to be using this palette, is in conjunction with other palettes, which is why I wanted to keep it. And I think by keeping it, I'm going to get a lot more use out of my Mario palette, because a lot of these colors do just, they just go together, man. So like, for example, All-Star, all over the lid, and then Muse. Oh, so pretty. Like, that's how I'm going to be using this palette. So that's my biggest thing, is if you haven't got it yet, I would hold off and until you can actually like play with it in store and just see if it's something you want to do, because there's no rush. I mean, it's exciting, so there's that rush, but there's no rush. It's not a limited edition thing, and maybe you'll get lucky and they'll reformulate it. If you guys found this enjoyable or helpful at all, and if you have any more questions, please comment below. But thank you so much for watching. Remember to give this video a thumbs up, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Bye-bye.